There is a man who turned $100,000 into a billion-dollar investment firm. His name is Mohnish Pabrai. And according to him, the fastest way to financial freedom is not what you think. It is not about working harder. It is not about having some genius idea nobody has ever thought of. And it is definitely not about taking massive risks with your savings. Mohnish Pabrai built his wealth using a set of mental models, simple thinking frameworks that the wealthiest people on Earth have quietly followed for decades. Bill Gates used them. Sam Walton used them. Richard Branson used them. And the formula is always the same. If they won big. If they lost almost nothing. Today, we are going to break down those exact mental models and show you how to apply them, whether you are stuck in a 9-to-5, buried in debt, or just starting from zero. Because here is the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. According to Gallup's 2026 report, only 20% of workers globally are engaged in their jobs. That means 80% of people are showing up every day to something that does not excite them. And most of them will never do anything about it. This video is for the ones who will. Let us start with the first mental model, and it is the one that flips everything you have been taught on its head. Model number 1. Clone, do not create. We are raised to believe that if you want to start a business, you need a brand new idea. Something original, something nobody has ever done before. Mohnish Pabrai says that is completely wrong, and the proof is in the richest people who ever lived. Take Bill Gates. We think of him as an innovator, the man who built Microsoft from nothing. But look closer. Microsoft Word was copied from WordPerfect. Excel was copied from Lotus. Bing was copied from Google. Internet Explorer was copied from Netscape. According to Pabrai, everything that Microsoft has done well came from copying someone on the outside. Gates did not need to invent the wheel. He just needed to build a better version of wheels that already existed. Now look at Sam Walton. The Walton family, when you combine their wealth, is the richest family on Earth, richer than Elon Musk. And Sam Walton, by his own admission, said he had no original ideas. Walmart was a clone of Sears and Kmart, both of which, by the way, are now gone. Walmart buried them. Walton was obsessed with studying other businesses. He said no human who has lived in history or will live in the future has visited more retail stores than he did. He would literally pull over on family vacations, tell his family to wait in the car, and walk into random stores just to study what they were doing. One time, a manager told him a particular store was terrible. Everything was a mess. And Walton's response was, "Yeah, but did you see the candle display?" That candle display was fantastic. He could learn from anyone. Good operators, bad operators, it did not matter. Or think about Starbucks. Howard Schultz, the founder, did not invent anything. He saw coffee shops in Italy and thought, "I bet Americans would love this too." He cloned the idea, brought it to the United States, and built a $100 billion company. Mohnish Pabrai puts it simply, if you are a great cloner, you will be 90% ahead of the rest of humanity. You do not need to reinvent anything. You need to find something that already works and ask yourself, can another one of these exist? Can I take what is already out there and improve it slightly? That is the game. Model number 2. Entrepreneurs do not take risk. They eliminate it. This one is going to challenge everything you believe about starting a business. We are taught that entrepreneurship equals risk. You hear it everywhere. The brave few who risk it all to chase their dreams. Mohnish Pabrai says that is completely backwards. Real entrepreneurs do everything in their power to make the risk as close to zero as possible. Here's his own story. He was working a 9-to-5, he had a business idea, but he did not quit his job. He kept his 40 hours a week at work because, as he puts it, some other person is paying your rent. Some other person is paying your groceries. Why would you shut that off? Instead, he made one change. Before starting his business on the side, he used to be a top performer at work. The day he decided to launch his startup, he deliberately dropped his performance to what he calls just above firing level. Good enough that they would not let him go, but not 1 ounce of extra effort beyond that. Every drop of spare energy went into building his business during the nights and weekends. 4 hours a day on weekdays, 10 hours a day on weekends. 9 months later, his business was cash flow positive. He walked into his boss's office, gave his 2 weeks' notice, and left. And here's the part that removes all the risk. His boss told him, "When your business fails, not if it fails, when it fails, come back. We will give you more money and a promotion." So what did Pabrai actually risk? Nothing. If it worked, he wins big. If it fails, he goes back to his job with a raise. That is the Dhandho framework in action. Heads I win, tails I do not lose much. And he is not the only one. Bill Gates left Harvard to start Microsoft, but what was his actual risk? He was a freshman with no job market value, his parents were wealthy, and Harvard would take him back anytime. If Microsoft flopped, he just goes back and finishes his degree. Decades later, Harvard gave him an honorary degree, and he told his parents in the audience, "I told you I would come back and finish it off." Then there is Richard Branson. He wanted to start an airline. A 747 costs about $150 million. Branson had zero. So he called Boeing's main switchboard and asked to lease a plane. They hung up on him. He called back 30 times. Eventually, someone got tired of his calls and transferred him to the leasing department. The leasing guy told him they only work with British Airways and have nothing to discuss. Branson said, "Just humor me for a second. Do you have a used jumbo sitting around?" The guy said, "As a matter of fact, we do." Branson convinced him to lease it. The key insight is that when you run an airline, you sell seats months in advance. The cash comes in before the plane takes off. You pay for fuel and the lease after the plane lands. Virgin Atlantic launched with zero capital and zero risk. Pabrai's point is sharp and clear. If Richard Branson can start an airline with no money and no risk, you can start whatever business you are dreaming about. You replace capital with creative thinking. Model number 3. Listen louder than you talk. Most people who start a business think they already know what their customers want. They sit alone, cook up an idea in their head, and then spend months building something nobody asked for. Monish Pabrai has a blunt way of putting it. Whatever idea you have come up with is not going to work, because you came up with it in an ivory tower between your ears. And that is not a great place to find great ideas. Here is what he learned the hard way. Early in his career, he was pitching an IT services company to a senior executive at a major bank in Chicago. He had a PowerPoint deck with all kinds of services he could offer. He got to slide 10, gave his pitch, and moved to slide 11. The executive stopped him. "Go back to slide 10. So Pabrai went back, repeated his speech, and moved forward again. The executive stopped him a second time. "Go back to slide 10 and do not change the slide. I have no interest in any other slide." That one slide addressed an extreme pain point, something the executive desperately needed help with. The other 6 services Pabrai was offering, the guy could not have cared less. At the end of that meeting, the executive handed Pabrai a purchase order. Pabrai went home, threw away the entire deck, took slide 10, expanded it into 20 slides, and that became his entire business. He could not have figured that out on his own. His brain, as he puts it, was too small. The customer told him exactly what to build. And this is not unique to Pabrai. Steve Jobs said it himself. The customer does not know what they want. But if you put something in front of them, they can tell you exactly how to make it better. There are almost no businesses that end up with the same model they started with. The original idea is wet clay. Your customers are the ones who shape it into something real. So when you are starting out, your only job is to listen. Talk less, extract more, separate the signal from the noise, and be flexible enough to throw away everything that is not working. Model number 4. Your time is not yours. Reclaim it. There are 168 hours in a week. If you sleep 8 hours a night, that is 56 hours gone. If you work a 40-hour week, that is another 40. You spend roughly 4 hours a day on chores, commuting, eating, getting ready. That is another 28 on weekdays plus 16 on weekends. So about 44 hours total. What is left? About 28 hours of free time every week. That is where most people scroll through social media, binge Netflix, and kill hours on things that feel good in the moment, but build nothing for the future. Pabrai says this is where your business lives. Those 28 hours are not free time. They are your startup hours.
On weekdays, you carve out 4 hours after work. On weekends, you go 10 hours a day. And here is the mindset shift that makes it sustainable. If your business idea is really your calling, those hours will not feel like sacrifice. They will feel more exciting than anything you were doing in your free time. Pabrai says the litmus test is simple. Building your business should be more exciting than your free time. If scrolling Instagram is more appealing than working on your startup, then you have not found the right idea yet. And here is one more practical detail he stresses. Live close to work. Every hour of commute time you eliminate is another hour for your business. That single decision can give you 5 to 10 extra hours a week. Now, once your side business is generating enough cash flow to cover your expenses, that is when you resign, not before. Pabrai did this in 9 months. His first year of revenue was $400,000. Second year, $1.4 million. Third year, $3 million. By year 6, 15 to 17 million. All because he finally had no shackles on his time and could go full out. But what if it does not work? You go back to your 9 to 5. Pabrai is clear about this. You could do this a few times. Each attempt costs you almost nothing, and each one teaches you something the next attempt will benefit from. The risk is never starting at all. Model number 5. Take more swings. Most people give up after a handful of attempts. They send 6 emails, get no response, and conclude that nobody wants what they are offering. Pabrai thinks that is laughable. When he was building his IT business from scratch, he sent 200 physical letters every single week to senior executives at large companies. Each letter used a mail merge with a personal touch. If the person's name was David Smith, the letter opened with, "Dear Dave." The nickname showed up 3 or 4 times throughout the letter. When the executive's assistant opened it, she could not tell whether Pabrai already knew her boss or not. So the letter made it through the gatekeeper. 1 week after those letters went out, he followed up with 200 phone calls. If there was no response after a week, he called again. Then the follow-up spaced out. 2 weeks, then 4 weeks, then 8, then 16. But the person never left his sales funnel until they explicitly told him to stop. He tracked everything. Letters sent, calls made, meetings booked, deals closed. He knew his exact ratios. And he did not need huge numbers. One closed deal was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. The relationship often lasted years. He did the same thing for his daughter when she graduated from Berkeley with a degree that was not in business. She wanted to work at a hedge fund. Pabrai told her to build a spreadsheet of every hedge fund in New York and Los Angeles. 1,200 names and mailing addresses. She sent physical letters to all 1,200, and behind each one, she included a stock pitch. A 2-page investment idea showing them she could think like an analyst. An 85-year-old retired fund manager in New York got the letter. His fund did not even exist anymore, but he had a friend in Los Angeles who was looking for an analyst. He forwarded the letter. She ended up getting hired at a higher salary than anyone from Berkeley's business school that year. Michael Jordan once said, "You miss 100% of the shots you do not take." Pabrai's version of that is simpler. You just need to know the ratio is not 0. Once you see that 200 letters produces 1 meeting, and 1 meeting can produce a $100,000 deal, you just keep sending letters. The math takes care of the rest.
Model number 6. Be a giver, not a taker. Adam Grant, organizational psychologist at Wharton and the author of Give and Take, breaks all humans into 3 categories: givers, takers, and matchers. There is no fourth option. Matchers are simple. If you do them a favor, they try to return it, 1 for 1. It is transactional math in their heads. Takers are the ones who try to extract value from everyone around them without ever giving anything back. According to both Grant and Pabrai, takers go nowhere. If you have any takers in your life, remove them. But it is the givers who become the most successful. Givers do not keep score. They help because they want to, not because they expect something in return. And over time, something strange happens. The universe seems to conspire to help them back. Opportunities come from places they never expected. People go out of their way to support them. Doors open that should not have opened. Pabrai puts it this way: the goodwill you build through giving compounds over time. Just like money compounds with interest, generosity compounds with trust and opportunity. And you do not need to worry about the time horizon. You are not doing the math. You are just making sure the other person gets the better end of the deal, every time. This connects to something powerful. Every conversation you have is a seed. You do not know when it will grow or what it will become, but it will grow. The business partner you meet at a random event. The stranger you help for no reason. The small act of kindness that someone remembers 5 years later. Seeds compound too. Model number 7. Control your costs like your life depends on it. One of the things you can always control in business is your costs. You may not be able to control your margins. You may not be able to set your selling prices. The market is going to do what it wants. But costs? That is always in your hands. Sam Walton chose the name Walmart partly because it was only 7 letters. He calculated the cost of putting up signage and wanted the shortest name possible because fewer letters meant lower costs. That level of obsession with every single dollar is what built the largest retailer on earth.
And it is not just budget businesses. Look at LVMH, the luxury goods empire that owns Louis Vuitton, Tiffany, Dior, and dozens more. You would think a luxury company does not need to worry about costs. But Bernard Arnault, the man who runs it, negotiates real estate deals that would shock people. He spends on the best locations because that matters for the brand. But the prices he negotiates on those locations are ruthlessly low. It is one of the most tightly run operations in the world, in a product category that does not appear to need it. That is exactly why he became the wealthiest man in Europe. The lesson is that cost discipline is not about being cheap. It is about applying discipline to every single decision. When you do that across 100 small choices, the compound effect is massive. Model number 8. Find the offering gap. Monish Pabrai's father went bankrupt 8 or 9 times, but he was brilliant at one thing. He could spot what Pabrai calls an offering gap, something the world needs that does not exist yet. Here's how it works in practice. Imagine a barber in town A. He is doing well, steady clients, making a living. 30 miles away, there is another barber in town B, also doing fine. Now, a new township is developing between them, town C. It is growing fast, people are moving in, but there is no barber shop. The barber from town A drives out to town C and notices the gap. But instead of quitting his job and opening a full shop, he subleases a small storefront, buys some used equipment, and starts cutting hair 1 day a week, Wednesdays only. He puts up a sign. People start coming in because their only alternative is a 30-minute drive to the other towns. And because of that time savings, he does not need to charge $30 like he does at home. He charges $45. Wednesdays fill up. He adds Tuesdays, then the rest of the week. Eventually, it becomes a full-time second business, earning 50% more per haircut than his original shop.
What risk did he take? Almost none. Used equipment, 1 day a week, no lease commitment he could not walk away from. That is the Dhandho Way. Howard Schultz saw an offering gap in Italian coffee culture and brought it to America as Starbucks. The Patel community from India saw an offering gap in American motels. They pooled family resources, bought small motels, fired all the staff, and ran the operations themselves. No labor costs, no payroll, no workers' compensation. They could undercut every competitor in the area. According to the Asian American Hotel Owners Association, Indian Americans now own roughly 60% of all hotels in the United States. The Patel community alone controls an estimated 80% of budget motels across small-town America. They make up 0.1% of the population. That is the power of finding a gap and filling it with discipline.
Model number 9. Let compounding do the work. Even if you never start a business, even if you stay in your 9 to 5 for the rest of your career, this one mental model alone can make you wealthy. It is the rule of 72. And Monish Pabrai wishes it was taught in every high school on the planet. The rule is simple. Take the number 72, divide it by your annual rate of return, and the result tells you how many years it takes your money to double. At a 7% return, your money doubles every 10 years. At 10%, every 7 years. At 15%, every 5 years. At 20%, every 3.5 years. Pabrai illustrates this with a story that sounds absurd until you do the math. In 1623, the Native American Indians sold the island of Manhattan to Dutch settlers for $23. On the surface, that looks like the worst deal in history. But run the numbers. If those Indians had invested that $23 at 7% annual returns and left it alone, by 1723, they would have had $23,000. By 1823, $23 million. By 1923, $23 billion. And by 2023, $23 trillion. The entire wealth of every man, woman, and child in the United States is about $150 trillion. So that $23, compounded over 400 years at a modest 7%, would be worth 1/6 of all the wealth in America. They were not taken. They just did not have anyone to invest it for them. Now bring that down to a real practical level. The S&P 500, which tracks the 500 largest companies in the United States, has returned an average of about 10% per year over the last century. At that rate, your money doubles every 7 years. If you are 18 years old and you put away $5,000 this year into a simple index fund, by the time you are 68, 50 years later, that $5,000 becomes roughly $500,000. You did not need to pick the next big stock. You did not need to time the market. You just needed to start early and leave it alone. Warren Buffett, the most successful investor in history, said it best. My life has been a product of compound interest. He did not say my life has been a product of picking winners. He said compound interest. Time plus consistency plus patience. That is the entire formula. So what do you actually do with this? Open a brokerage account at Fidelity, Schwab, Vanguard, Interactive Brokers, or Robinhood. It takes minutes. Buy the S&P 500 index. Or if you want to follow Pabrai's suggestion, buy Berkshire Hathaway, ticker BRKB. It is basically an index fund managed by the greatest investor alive. Then set it and forget it. Do not check it every day. Do not panic when the market drops. Just keep adding money and let compounding do its thing over decades. Pabrai's final framework. The Dhandho Way. Heads I win, tails I do not lose much. Every single idea we have covered today rolls up into this one principle. Clone what already works instead of inventing from scratch. Keep your day job while you build on the side. Listen to your customers and let them shape the product. Take massive action through volume, not through hoping one attempt works. Give more than you take and let the goodwill compound. Control your costs obsessively. Find gaps in the market that nobody else is filling. And let compound interest turn small amounts of money into fortunes over time. In every case, the downside is almost zero, and the upside is unlimited. Monish Pabrai's father went bankrupt 9 times. The family had nothing. And yet, using these exact principles, Pabrai went from a 9-to-5 job with $100,000 scraped together from credit cards and a retirement account to building a billion-dollar investment firm. He did not need connections. He did not need a business degree. He did not need luck. He needed frameworks. And now you have them. The question is not whether these models work. The evidence is overwhelming that they do. The question is whether you will actually use them. Because here is the uncomfortable truth. Most people who watch a video like this will nod along, feel inspired for about 15 minutes, and then go back to exactly what they were doing before. The scroll continues. The 9-to-5 continues. The years keep passing, but some of you will do something different. Some of you will close this video, open a spreadsheet, and start mapping out the offering gap you have been noticing for months. Some of you will send 200 letters this week. Some of you will set up that brokerage account tonight and buy your first index fund. Those are the people who look back a year from now and realize that everything changed because of one decision on one random afternoon. The models are free. The time is now. And the risk, as Pabrai would say, is zero.